I was about 10 years old when I saw a train by Lee Quiñones, a full train painted top to bottom, and it had cartoons and letters and colorful. So as a young kid who loved cartoons, I was like, who, why, what, where, how? Then I started realizing it was all over the community. I was living in the South, between the South Bronx, New York, and Spanish Harlem on the west side of New York. And at that time, there was so much writing that I wasn't aware of. And then when I was aware of it, I started realizing there were other people I knew who were doing this. And so I decided to try. And I tried in school. And a friend introduced me to a marker, like a real graffiti marker. And from there, I started paying more attention to the writing, learning more about the writing and the culture. And so from then on, I never looked back. I kept getting invested into this culture, realizing that it wasn't just a signature, but it was also design. It was also the complicated lettering forms and things that move and cartoons that come off the train. And it was a way to get known in a place where you were not necessarily known or thought about, because it was the South Bronx and the city was very poor. So from that point, that entryway was the entry into a whole culture that was not just in one place, but in many places in New York City. My name, when I started, because I started writing in the mid-70s, and what happened in that era, writers had two names, like Stay High 149, Super Cool 223, and so that was the thing, to have two name names. And I chose Nightmare because it seemed cool and dangerous, but I dropped the night because I wanted to be a style writer. And so style writer meant that you were doing not just a tag, but you were actually designing letters with forms and arrows. That was really the best, the apex of what the culture was. And so I focused on that. That's why I kept the name short. During the early 80s, when all of us were being discovered, everyone was painting on canvas. It was flat, 2D. It was not necessarily style writing that was being transformed from the train to the canvas. It was something else. It changed. The artists changed. They'd be doing more work that was popular, it was commercial, or had a very different aesthetic. And my response to that was like, well, no, I'm not going to take part in that. I'm still going to paint trains. And then I got to the point where, as a style writer, felt like I got as good as I could get. And I said, okay, well, how do I respond to this that's happening? What's next? And so my response to my peers was to maybe do something they haven't done before. And so in 1985, I started doing the letter sculptures. And there was only one done in 1980. Actually, my first sculpture was in 1984. And phase 2 did a large-scale, beautiful, big, he was the first one to do a large-scale sculpture, which was very important. Up until that point, nobody was thinking about sculpture. So I decided to take graffiti, or style writing, that's what we knew it as, into another space to connect all those things we were alluding to, that letters would fold into space, that there would be depth. And so I started doing the letters. And also my relationship with Henry Chalfant for many years was very important, because he too was a sculptor. And he too knew about art history. He introduced me into art history very early. So I was connecting my work to art history. And so when I started doing the letter sculptures, I said, well, that's too easy. Let's connect that to art history, like to the constructivists, to the cubists, to the futurists. Those ideas of contemporary art, those things that were in proximity to the aesthetics of writing. And so that's where I found my love for sculptors and other periods. And you can see it in the work. I mean, you could, like, for instance, this work, when I was making it, I was thinking about an artist, David Smith, one of my favorite American sculptors, and just picking up raw material and drawing in space. And writers draw in space because we do like this, you know? And we have a muscle memory, so the lines are like this, and you see it. And so for me, that transition was really easy and natural. But I knew I couldn't stay in the traditional format of graffiti, that it had to evolve. And I kept pushing the envelope through sculpture. I came to Istanbul about a year and a half ago, and it was to do some academic work with Islamic scholars from the US and Turkey. And in this visit, I had to do a presentation about this culture, where it's going, what it has been doing in terms of its art and its aesthetic and its influence. And in that time when I was here, I had the opportunity to learn about this country and Islamic culture. And when I went to Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque and all the mosques around, I was really attracted to the patterns, to the very intelligent use of light, of form, of writing, this whole dynamic, which I said correlates to the writing that we were doing in some ways. But these patterns do something else emotionally, historically have a different kind of meaning and context. And so for this particular piece, this was the piece I wanted to express what I had learned and what I was feeling as I was looking at architecture and writing and fabrics and things like that. And so it was important for me to do something that was reflective of that here in this experience. And to be able to leave this as a gift for the museum was very important to me, because it connects to what's already in the collection. It goes back to what I was saying, relevance through proximity, right? And though it has those elements of style writing, the arrow, which is the icon of graffiti, I felt that it should also have that architectural dynamic that I was seeing in mosques, you know, or that movement, that lyric, that rhythm, that music, that sound, that light, all that I was seeing while I was in the country. And so for me, it was incredibly important to try to do something that was expressive of that experience.